Hi, my name is Barry Sterling Mitchell. I produce the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings and the Bias Plus reports.
Hello out there. My name is Ben Dickerson. I'm the co-host of the show, and we're ready to talk some NFL football, specifically the results of week 2, along with the bias reports for the upcoming week.
For those who have never seen our videos, let me quickly describe what the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings and the Bias Plus reports are. So again, we rank the teams by net points. That's the difference between the points that they scored and the points that they gave up. So for example, if you've played 2 games, you've scored 100 points and you've given up 50, your net points is 50. And that's how we rank. So it's completely objective. There's no opinion. The Bias Plus reports take these net point rankings in matchups and compares them. Looks for that difference. And the Bias Plus goes to the team with the greater net point. So for example, again, I'm the team. I have 100 net points positive. Your team, you have 50 net point positive. Our teams are playing each other. The difference of 50 goes to the team with the greatest number of net points. We call that a bias. Not exactly a forecast, but if you're scoring at a much higher rate than the other team, then, more than likely, you have a good shot at winning, and that's what we call a bias. We add the plus, which is from the turnover differential, because turnovers lead to points, and they really are one of the number one stats that affect your scoring. So it's the bias plus, it's that difference between net points plus the difference between the turnover differential. That gives you your bias plus report, and then we take a look at that for every matchup. I hope I made sense there. Make sure that you click the subscribe button and the notification button, so as we go through this discipline every week, you'll be notified when we put out our videos. All right. So when we do our Bias Plus reports, Mr. Dickerson over there always has his own opinion. He gets to add a little bit of opinion to this situation. I'm purely a stat man. It's nothing but numbers with me. But that's not so with this guy. Between the fantasy numbers that's flowing around in his head and whatever else might be happening in his life, he will not always agree with the Bias Plus report. And now he has to live with his results. So, Mr. Dickerson, let me hear how you made out last week.
Okay, how I made out last week. I usually go, I won so many and I lost so many, but I neglected to do the math. So I'll just go down game by game, tell you which ones I won, which ones I lost, and also let you know what the bias pick was, so you'll know if the bias won or lost, and maybe you can do the math for me at the end. But game by game, and I'm just going to try to get through this as quickly as I can without getting too deep into the numbers. However, there is some conjecture here. There is some opinion on my part. It's important, and the numbers are important, not only for the net point power rankings, but also for you fantasy people out there to keep track of how some of your favorite players are playing, the kind of stats that they're putting up. And, if there's somebody maybe that might be out there on the waiver wire for you that you can pick up on your fantasy team, you can think about that very seriously. So here we go. First game, the Bengals were at the Browns. The Bias Plus report picked the Bengals. I also picked the Bengals after having been very impressed with Mr. Burrow. Unfortunately for me and the bias, the Browns won the game. Baker Mayfield was 16 of 23 for 219 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. After getting smashed by the Ravens the week before, he somewhat came back. He had a little help. The Bengals were missing 2 of their starters in the middle of their line of 2 D tackles, Geno Atkins and Mike Daniels. So that helped a little bit, as the pass rush was not as fierce as it normally would have been. Nick Chubb had 22 carries for 124 yards. Great game for him. He had 1 catch for 9 yards, and he scored 2 touchdowns. He punished the Bengals defense. This guy was killing them with power and speed. Great running back, having a great season so far. As if that wasn't enough, here comes Kareem Hunt. Only 10 carries, 86 yards, and a touchdown. And he caught 2 balls for 15 yards and scored another touchdown through the air. This backfield is basically who has the hot hand, or they split the carries. But the guy with the hot hand will usually get a little bit more touches than the other guy. It's game flow dependent, but that's pretty much their strength, is their running game.
Can I say this?
Yes.
Kareem Hunt reminds me of Alvin Kamara. It's like having Alvin Kamara in your backfield as a backup running back, because he does everything almost, I guess, as well. Fast, can catch the ball,
Runs. If I give him anything, I give him a little bit more power and a little bit more tackle breaking ability than Mr.
Kamara.
But other than that, yes, you're right. They're the same guy. They're basically the same guy. Absolutely. Kareem Hunt could start on more than half of the teams in the NFL right now. Easily. Yep. So let's go to my team, and let's get this painful moment over with. The Giants were at the Bears. They were in Chicago. The bias picked the Bears, which was pretty smart because I picked the Giants, and I lost. Mitchell Trubisky. He Trubisky'd it up a little bit, had 2 interceptions. He only threw for 190 yards. He was 10 of 28, not a great day. But he did find the end zone twice, which was good for him. David Montgomery, who didn't have a stellar year last year, has started off pretty hot. 16 carries, 82 yards, caught the ball 3 times for 45 yards and scored a touchdown. He led the team in rushing and receiving yardage, and they held the lead throughout the game. So that's a big deal for the Chicago Bears. The Falcons went to Dallas and played the Cowboys. I lost this one too. I picked the Falcons for their high-flying offense and the lack of defense that I saw in week 1 from the Dallas Cowboys. The bias was smarter than me on this one. Bias picked the Cowboys. And doggone it, the Falcons did everything they could to win this game, but somehow, some way, they did not pull it out. Mr. Dak Prescott, please, Eagles fans, and I know you think I come at you a lot. It could be worse, okay? Stop getting all bent out of shape when somebody says Dak is better than Carson Wentz. Please stop it. 34 of 47, 450 yards, threw 1 touchdown pass and scored on 3 touchdown runs. Yeah, they were short runs. I don't care. 3 touchdown runs. Dallas trailed in this game 20-0 after the first quarter. It was 39-24. They were still down with 5 minutes left in the game. Dak took them on a drive, threw a touchdown pass, took them on another drive, ran another touchdown in. Then they had the craziest of all onside kicks. P.S. The Falcons special team coach should be fired by now. And got the recovery, and Zerline kicked in the field goal for the win. Big game for Dallas. Zeke had a fair to middling game, 22 carries, 89 yards, 1 touchdown, caught the ball 3 times for 33. So Zeke did his normal thing. Wasn't a big game for him, but considering Dak was pretty much carrying the load, that's a good day for Zeke. The Detroit Lions went to Green Bay, played the Packers. I won this one. I picked the Packers. The bias also picked the Packers. Good choice. Aaron Rodgers, 18 of 30. Not great. 240 yards, but he did throw 2 touchdown passes. Aaron Jones carried most of the weight in this one. 18 carries, 168 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, 4 catches for a whopping 68 yards on 4 catches and another touchdown. Unbelievable. Oh, by the way, it's a contract year for Aaron Jones, so the dollar signs are starting to mount up.
The only contract I want to know is, did you have him on your fantasy team?
I had him on a few of my fantasy teams. Yes, quite a few.
Okay, all right.
He's been a first round pick, maybe possibly second round pick in most fantasy drafts around the world. That's just how it is.
Okay.
Destroyed the Lions defense single-handedly, scoring on the ground and through the air. I mean, he just killed them. He just killed them. Next game, the Minnesota Vikings went into Indianapolis to play the Colts. The two whipping boys, Barry Mitchell's favorite two whipping boys, played each other. Kirk Cousins and old man Phillip Rivers. Well, guess what? Kirk Cousins didn't show up. 11 of 26, 113 yards, no touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. I have nothing else to say about Kirk Cousins. Meanwhile, old man Rivers had a kind of unceremonious day, but still he got the job done. 19 of 25, 214, threw a touchdown, had 1 interception. The Colts ran the ball most of the time. In fact, they ran the ball 40 times.
Wow.
40 times. So he threw the ball 25 times, and they ran the ball 40 times. Fantasy owners, if you had the Vikings defense, get rid of them. Man, one of my favorite teams this year, the Buffalo Bills.
You got that one right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I had the Colts.
Trying to track it for you.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. I don't want to take that.
Okay.
I picked the Vikings. What? I don't know what I was thinking. Probably had Dalvin Cook on my mind, and I haven't paid the kind of attention to the Colts defense that I should have. I am sorry. But more than the Colts defense really stepping up, the Vikings defense was horrible. And I don't see them getting better anytime soon. Okay, enough of that. Oh, got to give some props to Jonathan Taylor, rookie running back. Led the way on the ground, 26 carries, 101 yards, and a touchdown. He also caught the ball a couple of times. Vikings defense is really bad. Now, one of my favorite teams, the Buffalo Bills. I won this one. I picked the Bills to win. The bias had the Dolphins. I beat the bias on this one. This one was a no-brainer for me. I don't know. I guess, the numbers will say certain things early in the season that we may find a bit curious. Sometimes it bears itself out, and sometimes after a couple more weeks go by, you figure out what's going on.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes, sure.
Did you say the bias had the who?
The bias had the Dolphins as far as I can. That's what I had written down. Did I have that wrong?
I have Bills. Bias had the Bills.
All right, well, I'll take that back then and forget what I just said. The
Okay.
bias had the Bills, and I had the Bills. Again, that's a win for both of us.
So how many wins and losses up to this point for you?
I thought you were keeping that for me.
It seems as if I see a loss in the Bengals Browns, a loss in the Giants Bears, a loss in the Falcons Cowboys,
You want to make me go back?
a win in the Packers.
I'm pretty sure I took the Falcons. Yes, I did. That's a loss. I won the game with the Packers.
A loss in the Colts Vikings,
That's correct.
and a win in the Bills Dolphins.
That is correct.
So of 1, 2,
So that's
3,
where we're at right
5,
now.
6, you are now 4 L's and 2 wins. 2 yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, let me talk about this latest win because, again, like I said, one of my
Oh,
favorites.
you went with the Niners, did you?
Anyway, Josh Allen is having a stellar year so far. I hope he
We're
doesn't.
still talking about your Bills. Okay, I'm sorry.
This guy is really playing really well, throwing the ball a lot better than he did last year. He had accuracy issues, especially on his long ball, but he is much improved. He torched the Dolphins defense, 25 of 36. That's nice. 424 yards and 4 touchdowns. I really don't need to say much more, but I will. He carried the ball 4 times for 18 yards. That's his other strength. Okay. Don't send me any bad notes or anything. I don't mean any harm, but he's the Caucasian Cam Newton. It's strictly my opinion. Stephon Diggs, the new arrival from the Vikings, who is now with the Bills, along with John Smokey Brown, did most of the heavy lifting in this one. They combined for 12 catches, 235 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Now, your team, the 49ers, had to go to New York or New Jersey and play the Jets. Another no-brainer, okay? Bias picked the Niners. I picked the Niners. That's a win. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo threw for 131 yards and 2 touchdowns, but was removed from the game at halftime after attempting, through the first half to play through a high ankle sprain. Now, the normal time for rehabbing a high ankle sprain is between 4 and 6 weeks. However, they seem to feel like it may not be a serious one. So it's a possibility that he plays this week. I doubt that. I think he may have a possibility of coming back for week 4, but we shall see. In the meantime, Nick Mullins came in. He completed 8 out of 11 during mop-up duty. He had 71 yards, and he did throw an interception. Now, more bad news. Raheem Mostert, a guy that I went after viciously on a lot of my fantasy teams, and he was ranked low in the fantasy rankings, so I was able to pick him up like in the 4th, 5th, 6th round sometimes. I consider that a steal. He comes out, starts the game on fire, okay, at an 80-yard run for a touchdown.
That's one of the ones where they start to clock you in miles per hour.
Yeah, and I think they said he had the record for miles per hour so far this season. I think he's running like 23 miles per hour or something. It was crazy. However, he sustained what's considered a mild MCL sprain. Now, again, I don't know. I guess the doctors kind of examined it and looked at it. They did a real quick x-ray real fast, and it was structurally sound. So they're calling it a mild sprain, but until they do an MRI, they won't be able to tell exactly how bad it is. Again, like I said, MCLs are nothing to play around with. High ankle sprain is bad enough. That's 4 to 6 weeks, but they expect you to come back. An MCL sprain could last longer. Hard to tell. But that happened in the second quarter, and he finished the day with 92 yards on only 8 carries. He will be sorely missed by the 49ers and by me. However, my man, I waited 2 years for this guy to get healthy. Jerick, the Jet McKinnon, comes into the game, takes over the ground game, garners 77 yards on only 3 carries. Scored a touchdown, but his signature play was on a 3rd and 31. Now, how the Dolphins, who'd they play?
Jets.
How the Jets held them or got them in a 3rd and 31, I have no idea. But they decide, well, we'll run the ball and punt it. And this guy rips off a 55-yarder. Unbelievable. Great play.
I don't think I've ever seen that happen before.
I haven't either. I remember the old Freddie Mitchell. I think the Eagles had a 4th and 20 or something, and he
4th and 26.
Yeah, 4th and 26, the famous 4th and 26. But I've never seen anything like that. 3rd and 31.
On the ground.
On the ground, a simple handoff, because they're figuring, okay, we'll punt. Nah, this guy rips off a 55-yarder to keep the drive alive. That was great. Now, let's go to the LA Rams, who came here to Philadelphia to play the Eagles. The bias picked the Rams. I picked the Rams. The Rams won. That's a big W for me and the bias. Jared Goff, 20 of 27, very efficient. 20 of 27, 267 yards, not big yardage, but 3 touchdown passes. Sliced and diced the Eagles secondary. It was ugly, okay? Darrell Henderson, who came into the game after Cam Akers, the rookie, started the game, sustained I believe he had a rib injury. He's got some rib cartilage separation. But anyway, Darrell Henderson came in, carried the ball 12 times, 81 yards, 1 touchdown, caught the ball twice, but ripped off 40 yards on those 2 catches. Like I said, Akers had the rib injury and Malcolm Brown, because they got a 3-headed monster. Unfortunately, 2 of the monsters are down because Malcolm Brown sustained some kind of a finger injury and was pretty ineffective. Cooper Kupp caught 5 balls for 81 yards and ran the ball twice for 19. Robert Woods had a quiet day. Robert Woods is my favorite Rams receiver. I have him on quite a few fantasy teams. To me, he's the most dynamic of all of them. He had a quiet day, but he did score a touchdown, also on a run. The Rams were running reverses and flips and all kind of speed. What's the word I'm looking for? Speed options.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I meant. I lost my train of thought there because some teams call it different. But they did a lot of that. It was almost kind of like they were making fun of the Eagles to me, but that's another story. Tyler Higbee, the big tight end who had a lot of injury problems last year.
Can I pause you 1 second?
Certainly can.
You said it was like they were trying to make fun of the Eagles.
No, it's like they were making fun.
Like making fun of the Eagles.
Making fun of the Eagles defense.
We're going to show this on our timeline, but it just has to be said that the virtual fans in the studio booed the Eagles.
Okay, and I guess the Rams were successful in making fun of the Eagles defense because they opened up the playbook on these cats. They're like, everything's working. Let's try this. It's crazy.
Right.
Big tight end, Tyler Higbee. A lot of injury problems last year, but he's now healthy. He had 5 catches, 5 for 5, 5 targets, 5 catches, 54 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Big day for Tyler Higbee. He was probably one of the top waiver wire pickups this week in fantasy. Now, let's move on to the Denver Broncos going into Pittsburgh. This was another big win for me and the bias. We both picked the Steelers. Just to say a little something about the Broncos, because I kind of feel kind of bad for Bronco fans. I have a few friends that are Denver Bronco fans. They've lost several players to injury. Most notably, their quarterback Drew Lock went down this weekend with a severe rotator cuff injury, and their top wide receiver Cortland Sutton, with a torn ACL. He'll be out for the season. Now to the game. Ben Roethlisberger, meanwhile, went 29 of 41, 311 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did throw 1 interception. It's a good day for Big Ben coming back from the elbow injury. I'm really liking what I'm seeing from Big Ben. I think he's going to get better and better as the season goes along. Spread the ball around a lot to a lot of different receivers, but the Denver defense is just a shambles. James Conner had another good day, again, coming off an injury from last week. He was very efficient. He had 16 carries for 116 yards, and he scored a touchdown on the ground. Now we got the Carolina Panthers, who went into Tampa Bay to play the Buccaneers. I picked the Panthers. I believe the bias also picked the Panthers. That was a loss for us. I have no excuses. I'm really like waiting for Tom Brady to like really flip the switch, and I thought maybe this wouldn't be the week. I was impressed with what Teddy Bridgewater had done last week. And, of course, I love Christian McCaffrey. I really thought that Carolina was going to put on a bit of a show and at least make it a really good game. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. Teddy was 33 of 42 He did throw for 367 yards, but he didn't have any touchdowns, and he threw 2 horrendous interceptions. McCaffrey is out for 4 to 6 weeks with a high ankle sprain. So his high ankle sprain is bad enough where they're predicting, the normal 4 to 6 week span for him to be able to get it right and get back.
Did you see his picks?
Is he what?
Did you see Teddy Bridgewater's interceptions?
Yeah, I think one was a tip ball and one was just he just threw it right to the guy.
Horrendous. I mean, you use the word horrendous. I'm like, wow, Teddy.
Yeah, well, I mean, you throw. This is a guy who was touted as being a top up-and-comer, okay? Sustained a very severe knee injury, was able to come back. The Saints picked him up as a backup. Breeze gets hurt last year. He comes in, plays 5 games, and plays great, okay? And his strengths are supposed to be his accuracy, his downfield vision, his ability to read defenses. But for some reason, and I don't know if the Bucs were doing anything really tricky to him, they play basically a Tampa 2. And those 2 shots were pretty bad. I mean, obviously, he completed 33 out of 42, so he did well, but he never found the end zone. So that's tough. Tom Brady, again, hasn't flipped the switch yet, fair to middling. 23 of 35, 217 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Not real great for Tom Terrific. Now, here's a surprising team. The Jacksonville Jaguars go into Tennessee to play the Titans. They played well. The bias had them picked to win, but I took the Titans, and the Titans won the game. Ryan Tannehill picked up where he left off last season. He is playing extremely well. I'm telling you, if this poor guy had been forced to stay in Miami, he'd been an afterthought. Nobody would even talk about him anymore. But he got to Tennessee, and he's revived his career. He was 18 of 24, 239 yards. He threw 4 touchdown passes, and they were all in the red zone. Talk about efficiency. That's big time, okay? Now, Derrick Henry. Everybody loves Derrick Henry. In fantasy, people were snatching Derrick Henry up quick, fast, and in a hurry. First-round pick, almost every fantasy draft. He had 25 carries for 84 yards. Now, he's played 2 games. He hasn't scored a touchdown yet. But he's carried the ball 56 times in those 2 games for a 3.4 yard average. That's something to keep an eye on. If you have him in fantasy, you might want to double check the team that he's playing against and how their defense does against the run. If they're a good run defense, I'm not going to say don't start him, because obviously he's a stud, but you want to think carefully about it. Be very careful, especially if you have another option at running back. The Washington team played the Arizona Cardinals. I got the win on this one because I picked the Cardinals, but I believe that the bias went to Washington. Can I double check that?
Yes, it did.
Yes, it did. Okay, so this is one of those things where I was talking about where the numbers don't always, bear themselves out. Kyler Murray was a blur. He completed 26 out of 38 passes, 286 yards, threw a touchdown. He did throw an interception, but he ran the ball 8 times for 67 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 12 broken ankles. This guy's amazing. Amazing. I love Kyler Murray. Other than that, Kenyon Drake rushed for, he ran the ball 20 times, 86 yards. DeAndre Hopkins, seems to be doing very well in Arizona. 8 catches, 68 yards, and a touchdown. I'm loving DeAndre right now. I think right now DeAndre has proven himself to be the #1 receiver in the league. Still plenty of competition out there for that title. Still lots of games to be played. I'm just throwing that out there. Next, the Baltimore Ravens go to see the Texans and Deshaun Watson. The bias picked the Ravens. I picked the Ravens. That's another W for both of us. Lamar Jackson, what can I say? 18 of 24, very efficient, 201 yards, 1 touchdown pass. He ran 16 times for an additional 54 yards. Okay, that's like 16 carries, 54 yards. That's like a number 3 running back numbers, okay? So you take his running back number, his rushing numbers, and then look at Ingram, 9 carries for 55 and a touchdown. J.K. Dobbins, the rookie, 2 carries for 48 yards. And out of nowhere, Mr. Edwards jumps in, barely got any carries at all in the first game, carries the ball 10 times for 73 yards, and basically closed out the game for them.
Did you say game. 2 carries for 43 yards?
No, 10 carries for 73.
No, before that.
2 carries for 48.
2 carries for 48 yards.
J.K. Dobbins, 2 carries for 48 yards.
24-yard average right there.
A rookie, okay? A rookie. What does that say about the Ravens on the ground? My goodness. It's preposterous. But anyway, yeah, so anyhow, if you do the math, which I did do the math on this one, just the running backs alone garnered 176 yards rushing. And then you can tack on Lamar's 54 onto that. So that's over 200 yards rushing between 4 guys. It's crazy. The Chiefs went to see the Chargers at their new stadium. I picked the Chiefs. The bias picked the Chiefs. We got the win. But it was a hard-fought win. The Chargers' zone defense seemed to be giving Mahomes a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble. And they played inspired defense. They rushed him. They hurried him. Most of his completions were very short throws. He did hit Tyreek on a long touchdown pass. But other than that, most of his throws were pretty short. He was 27 of 47, 302 yards. He did throw 2 touchdowns, and they were able to win the game in overtime. Much tougher game than most people anticipated. I know it was a much tougher game than I anticipated. Chargers really threw a scare into them. Okay, where are we at here? Patriots with Cam Newton. Patriots fans feeling pretty good about Cam right now, as they should. Unfortunately, they had to take a long trip up to Seattle to see the Seahawks. I picked the Seahawks. The bias picked the Seahawks, and we got the win. Okay? Russell Wilson, very, very efficient. 21 of 28, 288 yards, 5 touchdown passes. Count them. 5 touchdown passes. He did throw 1 interception. He also had 39 yards rushing on just 5 carries. Well, some of them were scrambles, and then he runs, and then he does his little baseball slide. I'm telling you, right now, he's the front runner for MVP. I don't care what anybody says about anybody else. He's my front runner for MVP. Got to throw in Chris Carson, another one of my favorite running backs. He had 17 carries for 72 yards, caught the ball 3 times for 36 yards, and he did score a touchdown on a reception.
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
What was the final score on that?
I don't know. I thought you had that. I just check off wins and losses. That's all I care about.
I might actually have that for us. Let's see.
It was a good game.
30-35.
Yeah, it was a good game. It was
there's only a 3 net point bias, so we were looking for a close one.
Yes, absolutely, and it turned out that way. The Patriots are no joke. I know early on, I think in one of the videos we made, probably in the preseason, I was touting the Buffalo Bills as a team that could possibly take over the AFC East. I thought that the Patriots would stumble. I may have made that statement before Cam came on the scene, but I think I kind of stuck with it. So I'm still going to stick with it, but the Patriots are not dead yet, folks. Their defense is still tough, even with the opt-outs and the injuries. Bill Belichick is still working his magic. So, let's not forget about the Patriots.
You had a classic battle between the Patriots' top corner and the Seahawks' top receiver.
Yeah, and it's funny. I didn't take down any stats for the receivers, but DK Metcalf was pretty much shadowed by the top corner of the Patriots and Stephon Gilmore. I'm sorry, and that kind of left Mr. Lockett open quite a bit. Usually, and I think I heard Stephon Gilmore say this during an interview, most of the time they put him on either the best receiver or the best big receiver. And then they double the other guy. Well, if that's the case, then Lockett was beating double coverage quite a bit because he had better numbers than DK. But, that's how it goes. They pulled out the win. Now, okay, so now New Orleans Saints, again, another one of my favorite teams, went to play the Raiders in Las Vegas in their new stadium. Beautiful stadium, by the way. Really nice.
Amazing.
The bias picked the Saints. I picked the Saints. Wow. This one was a shocker to me. Drew Brees, 26 of 38, 312 yards, but was only able to throw for one touchdown. Most of his yardage came on yak yards delivered by Alvin Kamara. So 312 yards sounds impressive, but like I said, they were mostly dump-offs to Kamara, who got most of the yardage on the ground after catching the ball. Kamara also rushed 13 times for 79 yards, scored 2 touchdowns, as well as taking 9 receptions for 95 yards. So Kamara did all he could, but he wasn't able to carry these guys. Not to mention that the Saints defense really had me fooled after an impressive win last week. They could not contain Mr. Derek Carr. 28 of 38, 282 yards, 3 touchdowns. And let's talk about real quick, Mr. Darren Waller. Darren Waller is a second-year tight end. Got a little nicked up last year, but proved that he's a special guy, okay? I believe in college, and I can't recall which college he went to, but I believe in college he was a wideout, just a really big wideout. This is a guy who can block, but is such a route runner and has the kind of speed where it's almost impossible to cut. Well, you can't cover him with a tight end. You can forget about that. He's bigger than most.
You can't cover him with a linebacker.
That's what I meant to say. And I said tight end. Well, you can't cover him with a tight end either.
Yeah, you can.
But you can.
Maybe Kittle.
Maybe, but I doubt it. Okay? You can't cover him with a linebacker. He's way bigger than most strong safeties. And forget about putting a corner on him. They can run with him, but they can't stop him from catching the ball. He had 12 catches, 103 yards, and a touchdown. Big day for Mr. Waller. Right now, and I would say when fantasy drafts were going off, the first tight end selected was most likely Mr. Kelsey. After that, Kittle went. They were usually 1-2, depending on your preference. But the third guy was Zach Ertz. Well, guess what? Guess who the third guy is now? It's Darren Waller. Okay? So let's not forget that name. And that's it for me.
Before you wrap that one up, we've
Yes,
had conversations in the past about Drew Brees' arm. And we clashed a little bit on that. In the last drive when the Saints were down 10, I'm looking at the play calling, and you're talking about Alvin Kamara and all the little tosses out to the flat to Alvin Kamara. I'm like, you're down 10. You got to score, get the ball back, and score again if you really, expect to tie this game up in the less than 2 minutes or so that you have. You gotta be hitting these passes on an average of close to 30 yards so you can get downfield in 2 or 3 strikes and still have some time to get, to maybe get the ball back. And they kept throwing these little dinky dunk ins and outs. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, just take a knee then. I mean, if you're really not going to go for it, take a knee. Put Taysom Hill in there if he can't get the ball far enough downfield, because you're going to have to drive this thing 20, 30 yards, even on comebacks, just to, get the ball and get up on the line of scrimmage. So, the difference, the challenge is when you look at his stats, all of his stats say he throws short passes in general. That's kind of what he does on a norm. But the situation didn't call for that, and it didn't look like he had what it took for that situation.
Okay, again, I'm going to come to his defense. Number one, they are not really a long ball team. They haven't been for a number of seasons now. The big problem, I think, was they didn't have Mike Thomas. Mike Thomas turns slants and curls and comebacks into big yardage plays. Without Mike Thomas, they had to lean on Emmanuel Sanders, who I don't think has mastered the entire playbook. And then the number 2 receiver is Tre'Quan Smith, a guy that, I mean, if he broke 40 catches last year, I would be surprised. So the tank's really low as far as their receiving core is concerned. He did throw a touchdown pass to Cooks, the tight end, Jared Cooks. But yeah, they're hurting a little bit right now, and they're going to need Kamara to do his thing. But that's using Kamara like that is pretty normal for them. But like you said, the situation dictated that they should have been able to go downfield at least a little bit, at least some intermediate throws. Okay, but Kamara pretty much got the same type of yardage they would have got on intermediate throws. He's the guy that, for some reason, they weren't covering, all those catches and all those yards. So that's what they just kept going to. Again, Tre'Quan Smith is not an experienced receiver. He's fast, and he's having his best season so far. Well, I mean, he was a rookie last year too. But it's going to take Emmanuel Sanders a minute to get on the same page with Drew before they're going to be able to go downfield a little bit more. And I don't know when Mike Thomas is going to be ready to come back. I think he's on a 4 to 6 week schedule also. So it's going to be tough sledding for the Saints.
The Saints still have Jared Cook as a good tight end in the middle. He can get space down the middle. And like you were saying, and basically that's what I was saying about, a third of the total yards. So we're talking about 30-yard, drives. Can you get the ball 30? You can get the ball 30 yards with your tight end. With Kamara down there, even if you want to put him in a situation. And Taysom Hill is pretty fast. He can help spread that field out too. So, okay, I see you giving some love to Drew Brees. I'm not trying to hate on him. I just really I kind of felt frustrated in watching them because I really didn't feel like, they were going after it real hard to try to tie that game up. It was just, okay. So what?
Yeah, well, I think Peyton, I think the head coach was a little frustrated with himself after that game also. I think he was second guessing, how they were going about things. My only thing is, I think Drew still has enough arm strength to get the job done. They just didn't have it that day.
Arm strength is a funny thing. I remember when Peyton Manning was with the Broncos, and it got to a point where no one believed that he could throw that deep out anymore. So they stopped defending it. And then he started having problems because everybody's waiting for him to throw it down the middle, you know. So
Yeah.
at some point, defenses they pick up on these little things and they will make the adjustments. All right, is that it for the wrap up for last week?
That's it for the wrap up for last week.
All righty, all righty. Well, to complete the wrap up, let's take a look at the rankings coming out of last week's, and we'll be able to move through these rather quickly. So, what we're seeing here are the bottom half of the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings. I hope you can see that okay.
Yes, I can.
Fantastic. We are looking at 17 through 32. First column being differential, that is net points right there. Second column, points for. Third column, points against. And last column, our favorite tie, turnover differential. So there you go at the bottom here. I never expected to see the Texans in this position at all, bringing up the complete bottom at 32 with minus 31 points. The Jets and the Eagles either. Now the Browns maybe, the Vikings I'm surprised at, the Lions I'm not, the Panthers, well, they're 26. We know that they're going through some things. The Falcons are the Falcons. It's an amazing thing. Your Giants tied with the Falcons, the Dolphins at 23, Bengals. Now this is interesting. Bengals here with the rookie quarterback are 22. They're only -8. Broncos -7, Washington -5, Cowboys -2. So that close win for that the Cowboys had with the luck of the Irish there, or the spin of the Irish, is why their net points is still so low. And then you see rounding up 18 and 17, your Chargers at net 0 and your Saints at +1. So that just brings up your differentials. Anything on that before we move to points for?
Let me just hit on a couple. Oh, I'm terribly sorry. Just hit on a couple of things here. First of all, I feel bad for Deshaun Watson, but I do not feel bad for the Texans. Okay, they traded away DeAndre Hopkins, which I thought was foolish. They thought that they could make up for it with a combination of receivers, one of which was Will Fuller. Will Fuller didn't catch any passes in this previous week's game. That's horrendous, okay? The Browns, I am a little bit surprised. I thought they would be better this year with a new head coach and a new vision. But I believe the Browns will do better as the season goes on. The Vikings, I'm very surprised. I had no idea that their defense would be so bad. It's really, really bad, okay? Lions, no surprise. Panthers are where they're supposed to be. Falcons, they score a ton, but they give up a ton. So they're always going to be, you know what I mean? They're just, I mean, they don't help themselves if they throw any picks, that's for sure. Where are they in the turnover differential? It looks like they're on the plus side in turnover differential. So that's good for Matt Ryan. Broncos will be falling fast. I believe Washington might surprise us and hang in there right around where they are right now, simply because their defensive front is ferocious. If they're rebuilding this team, they've started with their defense, and their defensive front is the real deal. Okay? Cowboys got some problems in their secondary. I don't know if they're going to be able to hang on to that plus side. And then, you know, Saints are the Saints. We'll see what happens. But they're going to be hurting until Mike gets back.
Well, let me say that the Falcons are in absolute last place relative to points against.
Points against, right.
Yes, absolutely.
Points for.
Let me get that back up on the screen. There you go. Absolute last place, giving up 78 points. The Giants are in last place in terms of scoring, and the Eagles last place in turnover differential. Now that their turnover differential, the Washington team that you were just talking about had a lot to do with that. And I was really curious to see how they handled Kyler Murray. Obviously, Wentz is a different guy. You know, he's not running as much as he used to. And Kyler Murray seems to have that knack for seeing that little lane. And if you're not paying him attention, he's just Mighty Mouse quick out there, and he just takes advantage of those big guys. He really seems to know his quickness and speed relative to the rest of the field out there now. And that's a dangerous thing for him to know, because when he wants to, he can just go ahead and turn it on and run it in. And when you have that option, it just makes it so hard. So I really was interested to see if Washington's defense could handle that. And they didn't handle it much better than my Niners did. So kudos to Kyler Murray. Relative to points for, real quick, right there in the middle, you're talking about the Titans, the Colts, the Panthers, the Vikings, the Bears, and the Lions, both tied at 44. Bengals, Washington. You can see the rest of them as it drops down to 29. Eagles are 29th in scoring. And points against, again, Falcons being in last place, the Vikings being right above them, the Lions. Browns giving up a lot of points. But again, that might be the Ravens skew. Remember, we used the word skew last year?
The infamous skew.
The infamous skew is in effect. And that's really, to be quite honest, why Washington was favored, because of the way that the Eagles played, and then they had such a big net point win. But
yeah, they had at least a 1 week skew.
At least
they did so well against the Eagles. That is true.
Anybody that has to play the Ravens, that skew might last a little bit more than a week. The Saints are at 23rd in terms of points against. That's a little surprising. They had improved their defense. And as you talked about Waller, I just remember Malcolm Jenkins couldn't handle him. They tried a number of different people to handle him. He is a handful. He is Kittle, maybe a little younger, maybe a little faster, maybe not as good of a blocker. But they obviously found a mismatch, and they exploited the heck out of it. So I had to give that to them.
And that's going to be a mismatch that they're going to have over a whole bunch of teams.
Absolutely. Because, I mean, let's face it, 6'6" with his speed, there's just not that many guys on defense in the skill positions that can match up with that. Some surprises. Beside the Saints being so low on defense, look at the tie there at 21 and 22 in points against.
Seahawks.
The Packers and the Seahawks on the lower half of defense in terms of points. Yeah, they're giving up. Russell looks awesome, but that defense is giving up points, man. Raiders gave up 54, Jaguars 53. You would not expect that the Seahawks and the Packers should be giving up more points than the Jaguars, the Dolphins, and the Bengals. But it is what it is.
Yeah, I really thought that the Seahawks defense would be improved, especially when they brought over Jamal Adams. And he's doing his thing, okay? But, yeah, they're giving up points. It's just that, Russell and Aaron Rodgers are having spectacular seasons so far. I know it's early, but so far they are just untouchable. These guys are really, really lighting it up, and that's what's carrying them to victories, which ultimately for NFL teams is what's most important. But, yeah, they're going to have to work on those defensive, those points against.
The Seattle Seahawks have given up the most yardage in the league at 485.
Total yardage or passing yardage?
That is total yards per game.
Okay.
All right. So
Okay.
you're looking at 485. That's almost 500. So you're just under 1,000 yards given up in 2 games here. Passing, it was 415. Rushing, only 69. But
right.
yeah, the teams that are right behind them are the Falcons, the Dolphins, the Vikings, the Lions. They're all in that point. And then there's one other team that's given up a lot of yardage after the Lions, and that's the Chiefs. They've given up a lot. Now, before we leave off of this group here, we just want to look at your turnover differential real quick. As you can see, the neighborhood for the there's no neighborhood for the Eagles. They're all the way at the bottom. Your Texans and Vikings are at -3. Then you've got the group Panthers, Lions, Cowboys, Browns, and Bengals with -2. The Bucks, Giants, Dolphins, Broncos, and Bills with -1, which is not so bad. And then you're starting to move toward your top half. You'll see some more on the other side with net zero. That's the Cardinals, Niners, and Jaguars. Going to the next group, now we're looking at the top half and continuing with the turnover differential there. You see the Raiders and the Colts both at net zero turnover differential. Falcons, Bears, Rams, Jets, Steelers, and Chargers at +1. Washington, still living off of that Eagle game at +2, along with the Seahawks, Patriots, Chiefs, and Packers. Saints at +3. You got to give them, it is what it is. And Titans at +3. Ravens, that team, in the number one spot at +4 in terms of turnover differential. Differential itself, net points. Obviously, at the top, you have the Ravens at +49. Packers coming in second at +30. And in terms of the Packers are the only team who have over 1,000 yards total offense so far this season. So they're putting up some kind of numbers. Rams at +21, Cardinals +19. I can't remember the last time the Cardinals were in the top 5 in net points. We talked a lot about them, just ahead of the Seahawks. Now, if you look, 3, 4, and 5 in net points, all in the same division.
Oh, yeah. How about that? We talked about the NFC West. We talked about how tough that division was going to be.
I'm telling you. 6, the Chiefs at +17. So the Chiefs are winning, and everybody loves them. But relative to the differential, they're 6. So the other teams are winning by larger margins. Steelers 15, Raiders 14, Niners 14, Bills 13. So there's your Bills. They're winning at +13 differential. So their work is cut out for them. They got a lot going on for them, but their work is cut out. Bridgewater coming in at 11 for +10. Mitchell Trubisky and the Bears at +8. There's your Titans and your Patriots at +5. The Patriots, again, you got the fact that they're in the top half at this point, I think is admirable. So I give it to them. Minshew Magic is amongst us with +4, and everybody in this group is ahead of Tom Brady at +3. So there's a learning curve going on with the Buccaneers and with the Patriots. The other teams have a lot more continuity going for them. I don't see anybody except for the Colts who have really a new quarterback that they have to deal with. So there's your net points real quick. Your Packers are in first place in scoring, having put up 85 points. Your Ravens are in first place in points against, having only allowed 22 points. That's an average of 11 over those 2 games. As you can see, in terms of your scoring, you've got your Packers, Ravens, Raiders, Falcons. So we have those situations where some of your top scoring teams are giving up the most points. The Bills, I like where the Bills are because they're number 6 in scoring, and they're number 13 in defense. So they're in the top half in both of those situations. Kind of the same thing. Well, your Titans aren't in the top half in scoring, but they are in the top half in defense. So your Patriots are right there at 14, your Washington at 47, your Buccaneers at 51. So that pretty much covers the net point rankings for the net points or differential, points for, points against. Todd, turnover differential. Any last words on this?
Well, let's see. I'll just say right now, I expect to see the Patriots begin to rise. I expect the Titans to kind of sit tight a little bit. I expect the Bears to drop. The Bills, I still believe in the Bills. They'll be in they're number 10 right now, so they're already in the top 10. 49ers are where they're supposed to be. The Raiders are pretty shocking. Steelers are not. The Chiefs, let me tell you something a little bit about the Chiefs. Everybody loves the Chiefs, as they should. Great season last year. Patrick Mahomes, awesome, okay? But I think what people are really in love with is Patrick Mahomes, okay? Now, they got Edwards-Helaire, rookie running back. The kid is going to make a lot of hay this year. He's going to do really well. But the problem with the Chiefs that I see that's going to rear its ugly head as the season goes on is their lack of a dynamic receiver. I'm sorry. They have a dynamic receiver. It's Tyreek Hill. But he's somewhat limited in what he can do. I believe that they're going to have to figure out a way to get the ball to him more often. And they're going to have to create different ways to do it. He can't just be your long ball threat. You know what I mean? He can't just be that take the top off of the defense guy. They're going to have to get it to him short, long, over the middle, which puts your number one guy in a little bit of jeopardy when you're using him in so many different ways and he's that small. But other than him, receiver-wise, they really don't have much. They really don't have much. McCole Hardman, he's a track guy, you know. Demarcus Robinson, I don't even know if he caught a pass last week. Sammy Watkins stays hurt all the time. Without Kelsey and Tyreek Hill, their offense is really limited. So it behooves them to tighten up that D, or they're going to take some L's. They're going to take some L's, and they're going to get severely tested come playoff time. But that's a little crazy prediction that I have that I'll bring back up when we get to that point.
Wow. Okie dokie. Haven't heard anybody speak on the Chiefs in that manner. All right. Well, that wraps up the net point power rankings review for the games up, including week 2. So we're going to get ready to move on to the Bias Plus reports for the matchups for this coming weekend. This is going to actually start. We have our Thursday night game. Oh, man. Minshew Magic is going to be hosting Fitz Magic. Or is it Minshew Mania? Or is Minshew Magic? I'm giving him Magic. Maybe I shouldn't be giving him Magic.
I've heard both.
The Dolphins are on the road. The Bias Plus score of 18, however, favors the Jaguars. Mr. Minshew is efficient. He's leading this team. He's making some very nice passes. I mean, some nice little touch passes, things of that nature. So Dolphins at Jaguars. Which way you going?
I'm going with the bias. I'm going to go with the Jaguars. I think Minshew is playing really well right now. Keelan Cole has stepped up as a lead receiver. And they found this guy named Robinson as a running back after they let Fournette go, who's really, really doing well. Again, fantasy. If this guy wasn't the number one waiver wire pickup, he was a top 5 waiver wire pickup this week. Anybody who was really smart and really, it's funny. When a no-name guy pops up or a rookie or somebody's forced off the bench and onto the field because of an injury, fantasy people are a little nervous. The guy has a good game, but they're like, I got to see a little bit more. Every once in a while, somebody will reach out and grab somebody early, but most people waited until they saw him play again, and now he's on everybody's roster. So good for him. I think the Jags will have too much for the Dolphins.
All right. Go on with the Jags. Bears at Falcons. The high-scoring team versus the not-so-high-scoring team. The Bias Plus score 22, however, favors the Bears. And that's because of that stank defense that – I shouldn't say it that way. You know,
Dang.
I've heard the Falcons this week called the dumbest team in the league. After that, you know, that onside kick scenario. And I have to admit, in the onside kick, I don't think I've ever seen a ball spin like that on an onside kick. It was almost like the Falcons are looking at it going, wow, that's, you know, I've never seen that.
Like they were hypnotized.
Yeah, like they were hypnotized. It was spinning like, you know, look into my eye. And you wondered if it was going to go out of bounds and if they thought, okay, this looks like it's going to go out of bounds. But it curved up field on them, and they had guys backing up. Falcons had guys backing up from the ball as opposed to jumping on it, which if you've got your hands team out there, that's what their job is to get that ball because you got hands. So it was a very strange ending phenomenon there. We've seen a few of those. Remember the one, I think it was in Seattle with Green Bay, where they went to do the onside kick and the tight end jumped up to get it and missed it and wound up going back to the kicking team. So we've seen some of that. But, okay, now that you got Mitchell Trubisky coming in, score of 22 favors the Bears. Who you got?
Well, first of all, let me just say, I would have to imagine that Greg Zuerlein practiced that kick an immense number of times. I have seen golfers putt the ball in a completely different direction from where the hole is because they read the green and they saw the little hills and the little rises and the little dips. And they were able to calculate that if I hit the ball at this speed in this direction, it will hit this little lip, it will roll back the other way, and it should come downhill and go into the cup. And that's exactly what this guy did. And this is kind of in defense of the Falcons, guys. He kicked that ball with so much spin that it was spinning faster than it was actually traveling on the field. And it was on a trajectory toward the sideline. But it somehow curled to the right and made it to the 10-yard point. In defense of the Falcons, guys, first of all, it didn't look like he was going to go 10 yards. It looked like he was going sideways. So their first thought was probably, this ain't even going to make 10 yards. This is going to be easy. We'll wait till it stops spinning and we'll just down it and it'll be over. Also in their defense, because of the crazy spin and how fast it was spinning, I have a feeling that one or two of them who actually came up close to the ball were afraid to try to pick it up or fall on it because it may squirt out. And if it squirts out after they touch it, it doesn't have to go 10 yards and the Cowboys could recover.
Free ball.
So, right? So now they're taking their chances on it not going 10 yards because they're scared to try to pick it up. The third thing, though, where they really screwed up was in their little decision-making process, they allowed the Dallas Cowboys guy to sneak it because they had the ball surrounded. He sneaks in, bodies up one of their players, gets position, and as soon as it hit that yard line, pounced on it.
He sure did.
Smart. They planned that. There's no way that happened by chance.
Oh, no. That was as much as you were saying that the Falcons special teams coach should be fired, the Cowboys special team coach needs to be lauded.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Although I'm sure the kicker came up with that. He probably said, you got to work on your onside kicks. So he probably tried some on the tee, tried some on sideways on the tee. Then he said, you know what? I'm not even going to use the tee. Let's see what happens. Oh, you know what I mean? So, hey, that's great. That's great for them.
Guys have gotten really good at, like, the receivers after they score, they spin the ball. And a lot of times when it starts to spin, you say, oh, that didn't look like that was going to work. And all of a sudden, this thing is standing up on its tip, and it's spinning us up a storm. So, yeah, these guys are, they put some time in on some of that stuff, man, and they did a really good job there. But now it's the Bears and the Falcons. Who you got?
Bias is with the Bears, as it probably should be. However, I think the Falcons will be at home and they will be desperate for a win. And I think they will play inspired defense, even though on paper their defense is pretty poor. But they will try their best to confuse Mr. Trubisky, who obviously is still guilty of Trubiskying it up. And they'll come out with the win because, let's face it, they can put up points. They come out on fire. Ryan's throwing the ball all over the yard. Gurley he's not having a great season so far. It's only 2 games in, but he's doing his thing. Calvin Ridley's catching the ball. Julio's doing his thing. Even their third wide receiver, Justin Gage, I believe is his name, has had a pretty good 2 games. So scoring is not a problem for them. They need to create some turnovers and keep putting the ball back into Matt Ryan's hands. If they can do that, they can get this win. So I'm going to go with the Falcons.
Well, with the Falcons. All righty now. You got a lot of reasons there. They're going to
a lot of reasons.
They're going to get there.
They might just straight up outscore them.
That's a possibility. I mean, you're looking at, what are we looking at here in terms of scoring?
A mistake-prone quarterback for the Bears. The guy's prone to make mistakes.
Bears were 21st in scoring. They put up 44 points. The Falcons are 5th in scoring. They've put up 64 points.
That's a huge discrepancy. Now, how big is the discrepancy defensively? Tell me that.
The Bears are 4th defensively. They've given up 36 points. The Falcons
are the worst.
Are 32nd.
So, again, a huge discrepancy. This game is a wash. I'm telling you.
It looks like a bigger discrepancy on the defensive side.
I don't care about that. I don't care. I don't care. Big is big. Okay? Doesn't matter if this is bigger. Big is big. So they're both bad. But the mistake-prone quarterback versus a team that can light up the scoreboard, I'm going with Matt Ryan and the Falcons.
All right, you got Matt Ryan and the Falcons. Okay, you got that. Next up, Rams at Bills. Bias plus score 10 favors. Uh-oh. The Rams. Which way are you going to go, Mr. Bill Lover?
Mr. Bill Lover. Oh, no, Mr. Bill.
Mr.
Nobody knows Nobody that's not our age would know what that was.
Oh, God. But if anybody goes back to YouTube and looks up Saturday Night Live, Mr. Bill, you'll know what we're talking about, and you'll get a delayed laugh, no doubt.
Right. Not the Rams. So anyway, the Rams have the bias, as they should. The Rams are actually playing well. Better than most people suspected. A lot of people were trying to close the book on Jared Goff as just being an average guy. But he's been pretty efficient. He's throwing the ball well. And again, they had the 3-headed monster on offense with the running back situation. And now they have a 3-headed monster at the receiver position because they have Cooper Kupp and Woods and Tyler Higbee. However, the Bills' defense is pretty stout against the run. The Bills' secondary has had some problems early on. This is going to be a tough one. I'm going to go with the Bills because that's my team, and I believe in them. And I think that Josh Allen is going to match Jared Goff's productivity on the offensive side. I also believe that the Bills should be able to run the ball pretty well against the Rams. But the secondary is going to have to tighten up because if Goff gets off to a good start and things start clicking with the receivers, it's going to be a really long day for the Bills. And in a scoring match, going back and forth, score for score, I really like Josh Allen, but I don't know. So this is a tough one. I expect this to be a really good game. If you get a chance to watch it, please do. But I'm going to go with the Bills.
Let me give you a few numbers that might impact your decision making. First of all, in terms
do I get to change my mind?
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, go ahead.
You know, in terms of scoring, the Rams and the Bills are only 1 point apart, with the Bills actually leading at 58 versus 57.
Exactly. And
so they're pretty much scoring.
I said Josh should be able to match Goff. Did I say that?
I think you did.
All right, go ahead.
Points against. Bills are 13th. Rams are 3rd.
Ew.
Rams have given up 36. Bills have given up 45. The Rams are +1 in turnovers. The Bills are -1. So that's why it's skewed on which 10. You know, a score of 10 is not big. So we know that this should be a really good game, as you said.
Yeah, I'm going to call that the Eagles skew as far as that points against for the Rams is concerned. Their defense is good. They got a shutdown corner. They got a beast in the middle with Aaron Donald, but they're not special on defense. The Eagles are just, the Eagles. So, okay. I'm not going to change my mind. I'm going to stick with the Bills.
All right, you had your chance now.
Yeah, I did, and I appreciate you helping me out with that. But I'm going to stick with my original because I believe that the Bills will figure out a way to slow down the Rams' passing game, and that Josh can put up points just as fast, if not faster, than Jared Goff.
Well, at least we know he'll run around a little bit more. So, you better stay away from that guy named Aaron Donald. Washington at the Browns. Washington's still living off of the Eagles skew, I think. The bias plus score of 26 favors Washington. I personally have some misgivings about this particular one because of this the between the Eagles skew and the Ravens skew. You got two skews going on here, which makes the Browns look really bad and Washington look really good. In fact, Washington was net of -5 in net points, and the Browns are -27. So not even including the turnovers, which wasn't a big deal. Obviously, Washington looked a lot worse coming off of that loss, but they looked pretty good in week 2. So, they look like they're possibly getting it together a little bit. So I'm a little ambivalent about this, but bias is what it is. Score 26 favors Washington. What do you got?
You are ambivalent about the bias plus score. Oh my. But I understand why.
It's the skew, man. It's the skew.
I know. It's always the skew. Now, I'll say this about this game, and this was tricky. Neither quarterback can be trusted. Baker Mayfield is slightly more trustworthy than Dwayne Haskins. I'll say that. But neither one of them is really trustworthy. The strength of the Washington team's defense is their run defense. Their run defense and their pass rush. So it's basically their front seven. However, the strength of the Browns offense is their run game. They have the best 1-2 punch right now going with Kareem Hunt and Chubb. Wow. Browns are home, coming off a pretty good win last week against Cincinnati in the Battle of Ohio. Washington's probably feeling pretty good about themselves, but they have to be honest with themselves and know that it's only their defense that's really keeping them slightly relevant. I'm going to go with the Browns. I hate going with the Browns, but I think Washington's ineptness on offense will allow the Browns defense to have a big day, keep Haskins on the bench, and Chubb and Hunt should run up for big numbers. If you got them in fantasy, either one, doesn't matter, play them. If by some weird twist of fate, you pick Nick Chubb early in the draft and Hunt was still hanging around later in the draft, and you say, oh, you know what? I should get Hunt as a handcuff in case Chubb gets hurt. You can play both of them, especially in this game. You can play both of them in this game, and you should probably do well. So, yes, I'm going to take the Browns. The more I talk about it, the fewer reservations I have. I'm going with the Browns.
All right, going with the Browns. You got it. You got it. Next up, Titans at Vikings. Bias Plus score 37 favors the Titans. You got much conversation on this for me?
No, I do not. I'm taking the Titans, as the bias is taking the Titans. Deservedly so. The Vikings defense is far worse than I thought it was going to be. I didn't think they were going to be really good. And I shuddered to think that I would have to pick them on a fantasy team. Maybe if my really top defense was on a bye week or something. I will stay away from them at all costs. They're horrible, okay? Derrick Henry has yet to score a touchdown. Guess what? Derrick Henry scores at least minimum one touchdown on the ground in this game. He should have huge numbers. He should run roughshod over them, and Tannehill should have a pretty good game too. So in fantasy, start either one of them or both if you have them. Forget about the Vikings. I got nothing. The only thing the Vikings have is Adam Thielen, but he's dependent on Kirk Cousins, so that kind of undercuts him a little bit. And Dalvin Cook, who's really tough to stop, but if teams can actually load up on him and get them in passing situations and get a good rush on Cousins, he's proven that he will go in the tank, which negates Adam Thielen, and therefore, blah. I don't even have a word for it. I just have blah.
Blah. Titans were +3 in turnover differential. Vikings were -3. That gives the Titans a bias plus in turnover differential of 6. That's a nice.
That's
addition.
big.
Yeah, that's a nice addition there. All righty, let's go to next up. Raiders at Patriots. Fun time with a bias plus score of 7, favoring the Raiders. Even though they're going to travel across the country for, I do believe that's a 1 o'clock game still.
Wow. Raiders coming off a big win. The bias plus isn't big. It's only 7 points, but it does favor the Raiders, and they deserve it. They did a good job against the Saints, but the Patriots are a little bit too good for them. I can't see them coming into Foxborough and beating the Patriots. Cam Newton should play well. Again, he's a bit challenged because he's playing with receivers that are not proven guys. N'Keal Harry was a rookie last year. He was banged up last year. He only played in a few games. He's healthy now. And he and Cam seem to have a pretty good rapport. But there's another receiver to look at. And people probably aren't picking him up in fantasy just yet. And his last name is Bird. His first name is either Demetrius or I hate when I forget players' names. But I think this guy is going to start making some noise. I really, really like this guy. So if you get a chance and you're playing fantasy, go to your waiver wire, see if you can find him. He won't be real high up yet, okay? But I'm saying that this guy is going to become a factor pretty soon, especially with all these injuries these guys are having. You're going to have to start digging deep on the waiver wire sometimes to get people that are at least healthy and going to get some targets and maybe put up some points for you. But, yeah, got to go Patriots all the way on this one.
Yeah, I was just saying, Vegas agrees with you. The 6.5-point favorites, the New England, minus 6.5. So you have the Vegas behind you there on that.
Always feels good to have Vegas behind you.
Always good to have Vegas behind you. I mean, come on, let's face it. All right, who's up next? Uh-oh, Roro. We got to go into this stinky stadium with sticky turf. We lost half our team. And, it's interesting.
Wait, hold, time out. Sticky turf, where'd you get that from?
It was one of the reports from the Niners. They said the turf seemed sticky to them.
Oh, my God. You know what? Y'all, stop it.
Yeah. Everything about this turf has been approved. There's been no bad reports up to this particular point. However, that was what I heard coming from a number of the Niners. What they did when they traveled, in order to avoid your cross-country scenario, they literally flew in for last week's game, stayed on the coast, went down to, I think, Virginia, West Virginia, stayed there. They're there for the week, and then they're going to fly back up to play the next game. So that's always a question. I don't know, the whole question was who lost the most between the Giants losing Saquon and the Niners losing like 12 people because Saquon is Saquon. But the Niners are favorite. Obviously, the Giants, are struggling. They're 24th in net points, 32nd in scoring, but they're 11th defensively. So, that gives you, some level of solace. We're only 14th in scoring. 14th. I'm sorry, 9th in net points with plus 14, 16th in scoring, but we are 7th on defense. So, this should be a good game. You got to see who we got. We got Ziggy Ansah that we just signed. We still have most of our linebacker core. We lost Bosa, obviously. Don't know if Sherman's going to be there. So we're going to, this is going to be a chance for some guys who we might not know their names to come in and see what they can do. And we still got the Jet there at running back. I'm not sure who's going to back him up at running back, though, because Tevin is hurt. Mostert is hurt. So we have to see who's going to back him up. But long story short.
I think next up is Jeff Wilson.
Yeah, I think you're right there. Yes.
So, he's gotten a carry or two in each of the first two games. I don't know if they're going to get a whole lot out of him. He'll probably be a guy that just comes in to give McKinnon a spell. McKinnon's going to be the workhorse for you. There is a possibility that Garoppolo will be able to go. I think that was the report coming out from their practice. Of course, he's yet to practice this week. Today is Wednesday. So he's still got Thursday and Friday to try to get on the field and at least practice in a limited situation. But I think Mullins handled himself pretty well. He seemed to have pretty good command of the offense. They should be able to win this game. I'm going to go with the 49ers against my team. even though I expect my team to play well, lest we forget that in both of the previous two games, the Giants had opportunities to win the games at the end. They had opportunities. They weren't great opportunities, but they had the ball and were attempting to put together last-minute drives that ultimately failed, but at least they were, quote-unquote, in the game. So I look at that as a plus. I think you said they were 11th overall in points against. I think that's tremendous because defense was something that I needed them to focus on in the offseason, and it seems that they've done that. They're still not where they need to be when it comes to playing against, the better teams. But I like the fact that they have improved the defense. But losing Saquon Barkley is a huge blow for them. Now, supposedly Devontae Freeman, who's been out of football for at least a year and a half, was signed today or yesterday. Word is that he will immediately ascend to the number one running back position, and Dion Lewis will then become the third down back. So I think they feel like Devontae Freeman, who used to be a 3-down back, still has enough left in the tank that he can at least handle the early downs, and then they can come with Dion Lewis afterward as the third down back. And he's a good runner on third down, and he catches the ball very well coming out of the backfield. Had a nice career and a couple of Super Bowl rings with the Patriots. So Giants aren't dead yet. I expect us to win some games this year. I heard somebody on TV say the other day, whoever wins the NFC East might do it with a 7-9 record. So if that in fact is true, then that means we have a chance. I'm not saying we're going to win 7 games. I'm just saying, you know what I mean? It's not going to be a total embarrassment. So, all right. I'm taking your team, man. I'm picking the 49ers.
You have a third wideout that's going to take Shepard's place, Damian Ratley.
Yeah, he caught a couple balls last week. He wasn't super impressive. He didn't do anything real special, but,
All right. Didn't know if he was going to show up in your fantasy or not.
No, the only guy that's fantasy worthy on that team is either Evan Ingram, the tight end, or Darius Slayton, wide receiver. Golden Tate is he's on the edge.
Okay. Bengals at Eagles. Bias plus score of 23. This is hilarious. Favors the Bengals with rookie quarterback and the Eagles seeming to really be struggling. You had made a prediction that Wentz was going to be gone within, I forget, did you say 2 years or 2 games?
No, I didn't say 2 games.
But people are talking about bringing in Hurts the way they bring in Taysom Hill, which is funny.
You have people outside my house with signs up that say Eagles lives matter. Don't do that. 2 games. Jeez. I said 2 years. Actually, I think I said 3 years. But I said I wouldn't be surprised if after 2 more years going into a third year that he gets traded. And I'm sticking with that. He hasn't shown me one doggone thing so far after 2 games. The Bengals deserve this bias. It's 23-point bias. That ain't bad. Again, Joe Burrow looks – I'm not going to say he looks way better than I thought he would. He was the number 1 pick overall. He's supposed to look like something. They trusted him. They made him the face of the franchise. And he's not playing badly. He's not playing badly at all. He's not, he's doing okay. Again, he is a rookie. He's got veteran wide receivers. Tyler Boyd, he seems to have a really great connection with, most likely because even though camp was short, Tyler Boyd was there for the entire time. A.J. Green was coming off of an injury, so they haven't had as much work, together and as many opportunities to work one-on-one or whatever. But A.J. Green's going to come along because he's A.J. Green. So, yeah, I'm going to go with the Bengals on this one. I don't know what it's going to be like in this city if the Eagles are 0-3, but I'm curious to find out. I'm not wishing it on them or anything, but if the Bengals come into this town and come away with the victory, it's not going to be pretty around here. And I want to see what they're going to do about it. Doug Peterson is under fire. He's under fire so much that Schwartz, the defensive coordinator, took all the blame for this last loss. True, he should take some of the blame, but not all of the blame. But I believe he did that because he's trying to lighten things up for Doug Peterson, because the pundits are coming at him and he doesn't really seem to have any answers. They're asking him what's wrong with Carson Wentz, and he's basically saying, I don't know. So I know one thing, heavy pass rush, he does not handle well. Now, two guys from the Bengals front four were missing last week. I don't know if one or both of them will be back this week, but if they are, that's not going to be good for Carson Wentz. So I'm going to go with the Bengals.
Going with the bias. All right. Next up, let's see what we got here. Texans at Steelers. I do believe we have the largest bias plus score of the weekend, favoring the Steelers at 50. The Texans, well, they're 32nd in net points. They're 28th in both scoring and in defense, and they're 31st in turnover differential. So even with the Steelers only coming in 7th in net points, everything for them is on the positive side, and the Texans are just struggling right now. So who you got?
I got the Steelers. This one's a no-brainer. I don't even want to talk about it. I feel sorry for Deshaun Watson. I don't think he's long for the Texans either. I think within a year or two, he'll be trying to get out of there.
How much do you put on, was it Bill O'Brien trying to play coach and GM at the same time?
That's been talked about quite a bit, not just with him, but with other coaches also in the past. It's obviously not easy to do. There's a lot of head coaches that have tried and failed at it miserably, mainly because they're only really good at one or the other. And if you're a good GM, you can at least, do the player personnel type thing and have good drafts and get the type of players that you want to coach, the kind of players that will be good in your system, things like that. I think those guys are more successful than the guys who are decent coaches but really can't handle the GM responsibilities. They try, they want to be Bill Parcells, they want to cook the dinner and they want to buy the groceries too. Unfortunately, they're not good at buying groceries. So when it comes time to cook the dinner, it doesn't turn out really well. And I think that's the case with Bill O'Brien right now. They've made some bad decisions. Losing Hopkins was one of them, but I don't think he could even bail them out at this point. He's probably counting his lucky stars that he's out of there. They're really bad. They're really bad.
Their defense is not supposed to be that bad, though. I mean, J.J. Watt.
It's not. And I'll tell you the truth, I wish I could put my finger on it. I haven't looked at them close enough to know if they have bad injuries. Or, nothing comes to mind. It's possible if they have like a bad injury to a key person or maybe somebody opted out. I'm not exactly sure. But for whatever reason, they're playing really poorly. They can't stop anybody, and they don't have the weapons to put the points up. Dennis Johnson, unfortunately, is not having a good comeback year. That again, that's going to be a mistake that people are going to point at Bill O'Brien and say, hey, you let Hopkins go, you bring this guy in as a bell cow running back, and he's not getting it done. He's not hurt. He's 100% healthy as far as I know. I haven't heard anything about injuries. He's just not getting it done. I don't want to call him a bust or a flash in the pan just yet, but things are not going very well for him in Houston, and the team is really suffering right now.
David Johnson, who you talking about, right?
Yes, sir.
It was, excitement from the start.
2020 season stats: 22 attempts, tied for 27th, 111 yards, 1 touchdown. That's a 5-yard average.
Oh, wait. That's his year-to-date stats?
2020 season stats. That's what I'm looking at right now.
Okay, that's Zeke numbers for one game.
Well, but again, attempts.
Zeke.
22 attempts. So
yeah, they're not giving him the ball.
Right. That's my point. They're not really giving him the ball. But when they've given him the ball, he's averaging 5 yards with it.
Okay.
It is what it is. That's
okay.
what the numbers say. All right. So you are going with the Steelers on that, which makes plenty of sense. Okay. Who's up next here? Jets, Colts. Score of 37 favors the Colts, especially after the Jets lost by such a large margin to my Niner team, who was dropping like flies. 37 is a nice big bias favor in the Colts. Teddy Bridgewater doing pretty well overall.
Old man Rivers.
Yeah, you can't be mad at him.
No, not Teddy Bridgewater. Phillip Rivers.
Phillip Rivers. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah, my other whipping boy. So sorry. Well, he should be able to come out against the Jets. They have a better team. So what do you got?
Yeah, this is another no-brainer. The Colts defense is actually pretty good. Where are they at in points against?
They are 8th.
There you go. Okay, so the Colts defense is playing pretty well. Phillip Rivers is having a decent season. Where I know we're only 2 games in, and I know he's not lighting the world on fire, but he's been pretty efficient. Okay, again, he's still kind of getting used to his new receivers. He and T.Y. Hilton haven't really, hit their stride yet, but they got a rookie running back, Jonathan Taylor, that is nice, okay? Runs with power, runs with speed, and is going to give a lot of teams a lot of trouble. They got a real good offensive line. They're keeping Rivers pretty clean. And, and they got Nyheim Hines, who is backing up Jonathan Taylor, who some people thought after Marlon Mack went down that Hines would ascend to the number 1 running back role. But Jonathan Taylor has proven that he can handle it. And Hines is still a problem when we get him in the game. So, yeah, this is a no-brainer. Colts take the Jets out pretty easy.
All right. Yeah, you've got your 31st place net points against your 11th place. And let me give a little bit of love to Phillip Rivers. He is 3rd in completion percentage in the league behind Lamar and Russell Wilson.
There you go. That's a good
77.5%.
There you go. That's a good stat. That's my man, Phillip Rivers. Yes, sir.
That's a great stat. Now, he got 3 interceptions.
Whipping boy.
But, yeah, that's a good stat. So, all right, I gave him a little something. Can't say I never did anything for Phillip Rivers. Panthers at Chargers. Bias Plus score 21 favors the Chargers. With all of the news coming out of Charger land now, they're going to host the Panthers. They're favored. Who's going to be the starter for the Chargers at quarterback?
So this is funny because I just found out this news just before we kind of went on the air here, I guess you could say. But it made me think back. So the game's getting ready to start, and they find out that Tyrod Taylor has some kind of strange chest injury is what they were calling it. Nobody knew what it was. Nobody could figure it out. All they knew was he had a chest injury. It was recent, like that day, and it was strange. It was the word that they used, and they went to Justin Herbert and said, guess what, rookie? You're starting. And he came in and played well. So the funny thing is, after the game was over, the head coach said in his post game, Tyrod Taylor is still our starting quarterback, and he will be starting again as soon as he's able, making it sound like whatever was wrong with him, he would probably, they'd get it fixed. He'd get his reps in during the week, and he'd be right back out there because the unwritten rule is you don't lose your starting position over an injury unless it's a really bad injury or you're out long term and somebody else just takes your doggone job, a la Brady and Drew Bledsoe. He had to know when that game was over and he made the announcement that Tyrod Taylor would keep the starting job as soon as he was able to come back. He had to know at that point what had happened. So it almost sounds like a face-saving move, but I don't think he needed to do that. An egregious error was made by the team doctor in trying to inject a painkiller into the ribs of Tyrod Taylor and puncturing his lung. Are you kidding me? Team doctor fired. That's crazy. If I'm Tyrod Taylor, I'm suing and I'm outie. I might not retire, but I'm not playing for this team anymore. But that's just me. So that being said, oh boy. The Panthers.
Let me add this to your decision since you said, oh boy. Let me throw this out real quick.
Okay, go ahead. Help me out.
Net points, again, Chargers are 18th, Panthers are 26th. Chargers are net 0, Panthers are minus 18 in terms of net points. One number that they share in common is 27th in terms of ranking. But what that means is for the Panthers, it's 27th in points against versus the Chargers 27th in points for. So
that's interesting.
That is interesting. Now, in terms of the rankings for points against, again, as I said, for the Panthers, they're 27th. The Chargers are 5th in points against. So they have an obvious advantage there, and which is, probably why they're at least net point 0, where the Panthers are 27th in points against, giving up 65 points. That's almost twice what the Chargers have given up so far. So the Chargers just played the Chiefs. So for a defense, that's a quality team that they had to go up against in order to hold on to a 5th place in points against. You're talking about putting the clamps on Mahomes a little bit and, making him have to go, into his Mahomes bag. It is amazing with him, unlike any of the other players who played who can run, who ran during the course of the game, he really seemed to hold off until near the end when he had to do it. He got what he needed to get in order to keep, keep the sticks moving, and then he threw the ball that he had to throw in order to put them in a position to win the game. So as far as the young guy coming in for the Chargers, I think everyone was so impressed that there is actually now a quarterback controversy, no matter what happens. So,
Well, I don't think it's going to be a controversy very long because the guy really showed what he can do. I thought he was poised in the pocket. He's really tall. He's accurate. He throws a nice ball. I mean, there were spirals all over the place. Nothing was wobbling. He looked really good. Once he gets full command of this offense and gets a rapport with the receivers, who are really good receivers, because let's face it, in practice, he doesn't get any snaps with the first team. He got no first team snaps in the week coming up to this game and then got named the starter like 5 minutes before the kickoff. That was crazy. And he did very well, kept his head, didn't look panicked at all. I was very impressed with that. Now, Teddy Bridgewater's got to have a bounce back. And the Panthers aren't dead yet. And the Chargers, they are starting a rookie. Because their defense looked so good, I have to give the nod to the Chargers. The bias goes to the Chargers too, right?
yep.
I gotta give the nod to the Chargers because they were able to handle the Kansas City offense pretty well. But I will say this. I did mention the wide receiver problem that the Kansas City Chiefs have that nobody sees as a problem yet, except for me. Okay? DJ Moore is a really, really good wide receiver. And he does have a good rapport with Teddy Bridgewater. And he had a really good game last week. I expect them to come out throwing the ball to DJ Moore quite a bit. Now, the backup to McCaffrey is Mike Davis. He's not a bum, but he's not a beast either. So their running game might come up a little short. So this one's going to be on Teddy. He's going to have to spread the ball around. He's going to have to be accurate and help them. He's not going to do much for you on the ground, but he's got to figure out a way to move the sticks and keep this game interesting. Otherwise, the Chargers will probably just take them apart. But I'm expecting a good close game in this one, but I'm going to go with the Chargers.
The one thing that stood out to me with Justin Herbert, one play he was, running, and the defender came over and went to put the big lick on him. And Justin Herbert got up and walked away, and the defender was down on the ground.
He's a big kid, man.
He's a big guy.
He's a big guy. He is not small in the least.
Defender took the worst of that one for sure, man. I was like, uh-oh. He just got up and walked away like, what? No big deal. All right, Lions and Cardinals. Oh, the poor Lions. They can't even have a bias plus against the Cardinals, who's a second-year quarterback and a second-year coach who don't have the type of pedigree that their coach has, much less the established quarterback that the Lions have. I'm not sure what's going on, but the bias plus score of 46 favors the Cardinals. And I will say this much again, Lions coming in at a negative 25 net points, Cardinals at plus 19. The Cardinals, again, play points against, ranking second right now in the league, only giving up 35 points. So that looks like a good strong bias plus score to me. What about you?
Cardinals defense seems to be much improved. I say seems to be because, the proof's still in the pudding. We got to see how they do against some division foes. But right now, they look much improved. That pretty much spells doom for the Lions because Kyler Murray is just outstanding once he gets outside of the pocket, whether he's rolling out, whether he's just scrambling to throw the ball downfield or whether he takes off running. The guy is amazing right now. He's just a shorter version of Lamar. I don't even really want to compare him to Lamar. I'm going to do a little side thing where I'm going to take a look at a lot of film of the two of them because they're not the same type of runner. Okay. Lamar is fast, but he's also very smooth. Okay. And, you know, he'll put a spin move on you, or he'll give you one leg and then take it away. He's that kind of guy. Where Kyler Murray is all speed and quickness, herky-jerky, stop and go. You can't get – as soon as you get in the area where you feel like, all right, I'm about to actually make this tackle, before you even, like, get into the process of making the tackle, but you've made up your mind that you're about to do that, and I'm talking about it like it's a slow thing. This is all split second, okay? He does something. He gives you this. He gives you this. He's got so many moves in his bag. It's scary. And he can stop on a dime and hit top speed again within 1 or 2 steps. He's extremely dangerous. This one's a no-brainer for me. There is no way the Lions defense is going to be able to keep up with the Cardinals offense. And again, Cardinals defense much improved, and Matt Stafford is just, well, first of all, their running game is lacking. And their number 1 receiver, Kenny Galladay, is hurt. Yeah, no way. There's no way the Lions can win this game. I'm going with the Cardinals.
Gotcha. Buccaneers at Broncos. Bias plus score 10 favors the Buccaneers. There you go.
This is an easy one. I'm just jotting this down. Bias for the Bucs. I'm going with the Bucs. This is a get-right game for Tom Brady. He should be able to go in the mile high with the thin air and just throw the ball all over the yard. The Broncos have nothing on defense. They won't even put up a fight. This game could possibly be a blowout.
Okay, I see you there. All right. Next up.
You got no numbers for me on that, on Denver?
I mean, you know.
It's ugly, isn't it?
They're 30th in points in scoring. They are 10th defensively. They've only given up 42 points. The Buccaneers are actually 16th defensively, giving up 51 points. But the Broncos are 30th in scoring, and the Buccaneers are 13th. So
you know what? Actually, and I'm not going to change my pick, but actually, that blowout thing I just said, forget I said that. I'm tripping. This is going to be a decent game. The backup, Driscoll, he played well last week. He wasn't terrible, okay? It's just that they have a lack of receivers. They're kind of dependent on Jerry Jeudy, who's basically a rookie, and Noah Fant, the tight end, who's a pretty dynamic tight end. We talked about tight ends earlier. He's in the top 5 or 6 in my book. He might not be statistically, but in my book, from what I've seen from him so far, I'd say he's in the top 5 or 6, just inside the top 5 or just outside the top 5 tight ends in the league right now. So this could be a better game than most people think, but I just don't think that the Buccaneers have the firepower to win it.
I'm sorry. You say that you don't think –
You know what? I'm sorry.
It's the Broncos.
Let me go back. I just don't think the Broncos have the firepower to win this game. The Denver Broncos do not have the firepower to win this game.
In order to win it, they're going to have to lean on that run game with Melvin Gordon, who's had a little bit of fun, you know, and he can do a number of different things. Interesting backup quarterback. You mentioned Jeff Driscoll as a backup. He said he came in. Guess who backs up Jeff Driscoll now.
Let me
Blake
take a look.
Bortles.
Who?
Blake Bortles.
Blake Bortles? Really?
They have him listed on the depth chart as the third quarterback.
He was out of sight, out of mind, man. I had no idea he was still in the league.
A lot of years in that backup quarterback, experience-wise.
Absolutely. Sure. Yes, they do have experience.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, if Driscoll was number 2, that doesn't say a whole lot for Bortles. I'm just saying, I'm just saying that.
You're probably right. You're probably right. Okay. Next up, talking about a good game here. This looks to be good. Cowboys at the Seahawks. Bias plus score 24 favors the Seahawks. That NFC West, man, you don't really want to mess around, and they are home in the quiet stadium of the 12th man. All right, so the Cowboys are 19th in net points with -2. The Seahawks are 5th with +18. So that gives it to you right there. Cowboys are 10th in scoring. Seahawks 2nd in scoring. All right, let's get to the real deal here. Defense. Cowboys are 25th. Seahawks are 22nd.
Here's the rub.
Some scoring going to happen in this game, man.
There's the rub. The Seahawks secondary is extremely challenged. Extremely challenged. They have been burned and burned often. And the Cowboys offense is not bad. They got weapons. It's going to be a problem. Dak is feeling himself right now. Zeke is Zeke.
Zeke is feeling himself right now. Zeke had 2 fumbles early on, and then just later they just started feeding him, and you could see he was running with a little extra juice, a little extra. Let me give this little something to you. He had that one play. The guy met him at about the 2-yard line, and he just crushed this guy back into the end zone. So. Yeah, Zeke is running with a little bit of fervor right now. I think he's starting to feel a little like I need to do something here, Yeah,
yes, he is. But, let's remember, Dak's playing on the franchise tag. So when he has games like he had last week, he's kind of sticking it to old Jerry Jones there. He's like, you didn't want to give me the kind of contract I wanted? Okay, fine. You didn't want to give me a long-term contract? You didn't want to lock me down? Okay. All right. I'm going to prove myself. I'm betting on myself. I'm going to take the tag, and I'm going to prove to you that I am who you claim I am, but don't want to pay me like. And that's your franchise quarterback. So Amari Cooper, Gallup, the rookie CeeDee Lamb, who is no slouch and has already proven himself pretty well with the few catches that he's made. The Cowboy offense is taking that long trip up to Seattle, and they're coming for business. And it's going to take a pretty good game plan by the coaching staff of the Cowboys. But I think they can put together a game plan that will make this a high-scoring shootout game. Tell me again real quick before I make my decision, because, I'm kind of leaning a little bit. Points against for Cowboys is what?
They are ranked 25th, giving up 59.
And the Seahawks are?
22nd, giving up 55.
Oh, gosh. Wow, that's close. Whew. Okay, so even without fans in the stands, I got to go with the home team. I'm going to take the Seahawks.
Going with the Seahawks and along with the bias and along with Vegas, who is Seahawks are -3.5 points.
That's not much.
That's not much. So they're looking for a close game also. But close game versus high-scoring game, again, lots of points, man. Lots of points. All right. We are moving right along. This must be the Sunday night game that we're getting ready to look at here. Let me make sure that I have this thing all queued up. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. We have the quarterback who every time he throws the ball, I think arm talent, versus the quarterback who every time he throws the ball, I'm thinking arm in question. Bias plus score of 28 favors the Packers. My son Christopher will be happy as a Packer fan. You know, let's face it. Ranking second, the Packers have net points of plus 30. The Saints are at 17th with plus 1. So that pretty much tells you everything that you need to know. Packers are number 1 in scoring. Saints are number 7. Packers are 21st in defense. Saints are 23rd. So again, the Packers defense, you know, you got the Seahawks, you've got the Falcons, you've got the Cowboys. These are all teams I'm throwing out there who are offensive juggernauts. I mean, when I'm looking at total offensive stats, yards per game, Green Bay is number 1. Dallas is number 2. Green Bay is 505 yards per game. And, you know, like I said, arm talent is the thing. But when you start to look at defense in terms of yards given up, Seahawks are, again, they're in last place. They're giving up the most yards out there. Where's the Packers at? So they're somewhere in the middle. Not too bad. Okay. But long story short, in terms of points, both of these teams give up points. The Packers have the bias. Who you got?
I'm going to stick my neck out on this one.
Oh no.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to stick my neck out on this one, mainly because the points against numbers are so close. I believe that Devontae Adams may be out this week. That's not going to bode well for Aaron Rodgers going up against the Saints defense, which is nothing to write home about. But they do have a pretty good pass rush. I also think that Drew Brees and his coach are going to put their heads together and figure out how they can get the ball downfield a little bit better, because Mike Thomas isn't coming back anytime soon. So they're going to have to retool their offensive philosophy. But the Packers defense is nothing to write home about either. I think the Saints rebound at home and take out the Packers.
Oh, all right, guy, got to give it to you there. All right, you're stretching out. You're stretching out for sure on that one. All right. So Sunday night, and again, one of those games where we'll get a chance to watch the whole game and see all the little intricacies and all the little things. So we'll have a lot to talk about next week. All right, we're about to wrap up the Bias Plus report with the Monday night. The Monday night, I was going to say party, but you know they changed the the song there, so it's what is it?
I don't know.
I want to rock along and ball tonight. Little Richard.
Okay.
Little Richard wants the ball. We all know that sounds weird, right?
Yeah, that's.
But man, come on. Could you find a better Monday night game? I mean, it might be a little early, but let's face it. You know, in most of the non-net point rankings, you have 1 versus 2 here. Bias plus score of 34 favors the Ravens over the Chiefs. And again, Chiefs net point wise are ranked 6th. Ravens net point wise are ranked 1st. In terms of net points, the Chiefs are plus 17. The Ravens are plus 49. In terms of scoring, Chiefs are 8th. Ravens are 3rd. In terms of defense, Chiefs are 9th. Ravens are 1st. And in terms of turnover production, Chiefs are 5th with plus 2. Ravens are 1st with plus 4. It looks like Mahomes is going to be up against it.
This is the game everybody's been waiting for. It is early in the season, but I'm calling this one a no-brainer too, okay? For the 3rd time during this conversation we're having, I'm going to speak on the lack of quality wide receivers for the Chiefs. It's possible, it's quite possible that they can live off of Kelce and Tyreek Hill. They basically did it last year, okay? But Watkins, Robinson, and Hardman each had a big game or semi-big game here and there and here, enough to kind of even things out. Doesn't look like they're doing that this year. It looks like it's all on Hilaire, Mahomes, Kelce, and Hill. And trust me, that could be good enough. I know there's Chiefs fans out there. They love Patrick Mahomes. He's magic. He can do this. He can do that. And that's true. He's the one that makes everything go, okay? But the Ravens are leading in every single category. Every one. And especially in points against. And we just saw the Chiefs, although they did score points, they struggled to do so against the LA Chargers. I'm picking the Ravens in this one. I'm taking the Ravens with confidence. I am not worried in the least. The Ravens will win this game, and Chiefs fans will probably just go, oh, well, you know, it was the Ravens. They're really good. You know, catch us in the playoffs. The Ravens will be there.
Okay, I'm with you. I'm with you. You know, it's looking like the Ravens. I'm looking for a really good game. And just to finish this out, as far as the Bias Plus report is concerned, for the second week in a row, the Bias Plus reports are 69% correct. So we're hitting it's like 68.75 or something like that. I rounded it up to 69, but we're just under 70%, 2 straight weeks in a row.
That's good.
On the Bias Plus report. So that's pretty good. And as I tell people all the time, this is not a managed, you know, our rankings are not managed. We're kind of like an index fund, you know. And the funny thing about index funds is when I've been listening to a lot of financial people talk about like the S&P 500, they're like, why should people pay for a professional money manager when they're not beating the S&P 500? And that's just a list of stocks. So sometimes, you know, you put together the right list and, you know, you can have a certain level of success. So we're just under 70%. That's not bad. All right. At this particular point, generally what we do, we're going to get ready to sort of move into a wrap-up phase. And the first, what we do is we go to our Ben and Barry page and we talk a little bit about some of the things that we've posted there. So I just want to remind people that you can go there and kind of see some of the stuff that we're going to talk about. So I already talked about this. I mentioned, had you heard this about the Eagles getting booed by the virtual Philly fans?
No, I actually didn't hear it until I saw it on our page after you put it up there, but I'm not surprised. Philadelphia fans are famous for that, especially Eagles fans. So, I mean, why not? They're not playing well. And
it was hilarious because apparently, you know, with them having piped in audience, like if somebody scores a touchdown, they hit the button and everybody goes, yeah, you know. But apparently there was a boo button built into it.
It's only fitting, man. It's only fitting. It's Philadelphia.
You gotta love them. You gotta love them. I'm telling you. All right. Next up, did I hear $1 million plus in fines across 3 NFL team coaches for not wearing masks? And then you add in there the Raiders coach and the Saints coach also got fined. Now, this is the thing. The players went through with 100% negative tests. There were 5 positive tests in team personnel. So when you're talking coaches, you're talking team personnel, pretty much everybody has a mask on that's in the background, like the support staff. But I really don't think that you should be beating up on the head coach. I think if there's one guy that's like the players, that you can leave him like the players and not make him wear a mask, it would be the head coach, or at least head coach, offensive, whoever's calling the offense, whoever's calling the defense, and maybe even special teams. Other than that, everybody I can see masks up. They're just being extremely cautious, which, you know, I wish everyone out in society would be as cautious to have a 100% negative test rate and still be vigilant about masking up and things, because this is not over. Just because, you know, that bubble is pretty secure doesn't mean that something can't happen. Both coaches, strangely enough, have claimed to have tested positive at some particular point, which adds to a little bit of, which detracts a little bit rather from my argument, because there is some question as to whether this thing can come back on a person. They've had some people who've struggled with it for a long period of time relative to symptoms, but I don't know if they were still testing positive. I think some people were actually testing negative and still having symptoms. That's a whole nother situation. But what do you think here relative about getting hit up? They hit the coaches for 100,000 and the teams for 250,000.
So they hit the teams for 250,000 because of what the coach did.
Yeah.
Wow, that's rough. Well, I'm sure they did that because they want the owners and to impress upon the coach how important this is, that he's costing them money, and there's 30-something other coaches out there, and they all seem to be able to wear their masks. Why can't you? I haven't heard either Peyton or Gruden say anything about a breathing problem or anything of that nature, actually. Just the fact that it's uncomfortable and they just don't like doing it. But I watched.
They're trying to talk, you know, and there's a certain muffling effect when, you know, when you have that situation, and they're pulling it down a little bit, you know, and
No.
and
I watched Shanahan. Listen, I watched Shanahan. He pulls it down, he says what he has to say, and he puts it back up. They both had theirs down under their chins and made no attempts that I saw to pull them up. They left them down for huge amounts of time during the games. They were obviously not wanting to wear theirs.
And for the Raiders, I saw him up on a number of players when they came off the field, no mask at all.
Talking to them face to face.
Yeah, for sure.
If you're ever going to pull it up, that's when you do it. But it's like once the game gets started, he's oblivious to it. You know, I would think that it would be in the back of his mind, like, you know what, I got to, with the mask. They all have to. They all have to think about it. Now, I think the face shield thing that Andy Reid wears is really weird. Okay, it looks super weird. And the first game, it was all fogged up. And then they said for this game, he came across some defogger spray, and he sprayed it on there, and it fixed that problem. Okay, that would annoy me having that over my face too, but only for sight purposes, not for speaking purposes or breathing purposes. So that works for him. Maybe they need to look into that. but they probably don't want to look weird. You know, Andy don't care.
You know, the face shield is, when you saw all of the condensation, all of the on Andy Reid's shield, if he was positive, you'd be thinking this shield is dripping with virus. You know what I mean? It's like, but
yeah, but it's all inside the shield.
well, it's, you know, if you're really breathing, it don't
enough,
really stay inside the shield.
It's enough inside the shield that it's not gonna, you know, what's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, I understand. It's not projecting
right.
that much.
Which
and
is
the other point that I want to bring out that sort of adds to my thing to give them a little break is that they are outside.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, you know, I just thought that they maybe are a little harsh.
Nah, I don't think so. They didn't even try.
Right.
They didn't even try.
All right, Ben. We're getting ready to wrap the show up here, and you and I are probably going to want to take a moment of silence here.
Oh,
as we talk about.
This one hurt me. This one hurt.
Well, I put our story up here for both Ben and I. This is tragic. Friends for decades. It wasn't until we started doing our Ben and Barry on football shows that we discovered that Gale Sayers was our all-time favorite running back. Rest in peace to Gale Sayers. Go ahead. I'll let you speak on it.
Gale Sayers, I had, you know, when you're young and you're first getting into the game and you're really trying to be, like, you realize that football is the game that you love and you really start getting into it. You're not a casual fan, even though you're young. You try to really study the game and watch the game and understand the different positions and their responsibilities and who's better than who at doing whatever it is that they're supposed to do. So I had a lot of favorites along the course of the way. But Gale Sayers had a special place in my heart. Like, his running style, the fact that he had great hands and could catch the ball out of the backfield. He ran back kicks. I know that there were other running backs back in those days that played multiple positions, so to speak. Like, I remember, I think Tim Brown, that played for the Eagles, returned kickoffs as well as being the number one running back. But he was really, really great at everything. The guy could have played D-back. He was amazing. His running style was extremely creative. He had the ability to do things that other players back then and even now just couldn't and can't do. And I will simply reference the greatest game that I ever saw him play, the game where he scored 6 touchdowns against the 49ers. He scored 4 touchdowns on the ground. He returned a punt, I think, for a touchdown, and he caught a touchdown pass. And the field was horrendous. It was muddy. There was hardly a speck of grass out there. And everybody was falling down except him. Just utterly amazing, man. Utterly amazing. If you get a chance, just go on YouTube. If you don't know a lot about Gale Sayers, or you just know the name, or you know he played on the Bears and the Bears were never any good, so you don't, just go back and look at some Gale Sayers footage and try and see if you can come up with a back that you know from not that long ago, or a guy that's currently playing that has a running style like him. I can't do it. Just amazing.
Well, you don't even have to go that far. If you continue to, if you visit Ben and Barry on football, the article we just showed you, which I'll show you again, I did go in, and right below it, I have a YouTube video on Gale Sayers right there. And, you know, you mentioned a couple things. I'll just basically agree. Number one, yes, he had his best game against my favorite team, the 49ers. He was a munner. I don't know when I became enamored with him, but I know that I used to rate his runs on on what I call takedowns. In other words, he'd run the ball and cut, and three people would fall. So that cut got a 3-person takedown rating. And I've seen him run through where you got 4, 5, 6 guys on the ground by the time he finished weaving and shifting back and forth and everything. Absolutely loved him. And again, he was a mutter. He had that ability. The one thing I did do, I learned so much. So I would encourage people to not just go to YouTube, go to Wikipedia and read about Gale Sayers.
Yeah.
Because his accolades through college, through high school, before he even got to the NFL were absolute. I mean, he was known as the Kansas Comet. That was from college. So when they call you a comet, that means you are moving.
Right.
And, you know, he's got track and field in his background. He's got all of that kind of stuff. And so, yeah. And they call that draft one of the greatest drafts ever because it was him and I believe Butkus in the same draft.
Ah, right. They were in the same draft. Yes.
Yeah, that's a heck of a pickup right there. So rest in peace, Gale Sayers. Ben and I are both ultimate fans of yours. All right. Well, Benny, that's it for me. Any last words?
Oh gosh, last words. Gee whiz. I'll say this. No matter what happens, no matter what anybody says, no matter what your friends think, nothing changes for me. Go Knowles.